With each subsequent product launch this year, I'm left with a sense of, so yeah, that's cool, but it's just another phone, isn't it? LG revamped its flagship with big aesthetical changes to attempt to be the standout manufacturer for 2013. In some ways they did just that, and in many other ways, it's just another LG made ripoff, but that isn't a bad thing, and let me explain, thanks to my friends at mobicity.com. And don't forget to subscribe, of course. LG are the creators of the Nexus 4 and suspected Nexus 5, so anticipation is that whatever is featured in the G2 will likely be seen with the next Nexus. The phone design certainly reflects that with a slight curve about the top and bottom, but you can easily compare this to the Galaxy S range, to which this device could almost be mistaken. They use the same material, similar size and shape, and it's a shame, because the Optimus G with its rear glass panel and more angular form factor actually gave LG a little bit of distinction. The rear panel is largely undefined, rolling into the plastic sides with a thin metallic S band, which is less appealing than the thicker band Samsung rolls with. The G2 appears thicker, but it's the rounding that gives it a near perfect in-hand hold. Coupled with the tiny bezels, the G2 has been my favourite device to use this year. It was perfect in two hands and single-handed use, which can't be said for many, especially as the display sizes blow out. The plastic slightly creaks, but it's crafted with silky smooth seams and a subtle texture appearing through. It also masks what would have been a palm scalding experience. I could tell the device was getting extremely hot at times. The base of the phone is confusing. It flattens out and ruins the symmetry completely, and so obviously draws attention to just how busy it is. But the rest of the device is practically barren, and the front face is nothing but the gorgeous display protected in Gorilla Glass 2. This is because with a hint of innovation, LG placed the unlock and volume rocker on the rear of the G2 beneath the camera. This is something very different for the mobile game, and one I got on board with quickly. The volume rockers rise to the unlock button and make it more defined. In some ways it needed just a little bit more definition, even though it does light up when pressed, and you do become proficient. I think we all expected this device to be more like the Nexus 4, and I think I would have preferred its appearance more if it was, but the in-hand feel and usability withdraw any criticism I could have had. It's just that good. In terms of innovating the design, it's clever, but not as amazing as what HTC did with the One, but a good stepping stone for LG. In its core is the usual impressive list of high-end components. LG likes to get in quick, not compromise, and deliver a device that everyone must compare to. It features the new Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 chipset with a quad-core 2.26 GHz CPU, Adreno 330 GPU, and 2 GB of RAM. I occasionally noticed glimmers of stagger, nothing major, usually just the zippy animations trying to catch up, but load times were generally smashing as you would expect with that CPU. I rarely had more than 700 megs of free RAM, even when I would close all running applications, which makes me wish they went the Note 3 route with 3 GB of RAM. Gaming was perfect, the ergonomics aid really well, and I would highly recommend the G2 for the mobile gamer. You also get the latest Wi-Fi model, NFC and IR port, USB OTG, solid GPRS, Bluetooth 4.0, but unfortunately no expandable memory option for this model. Internal memory comes in either 16 or 32 gigs. The reception quality was excellent. LTE speeds were blazing, call quality easily some of the best I've ever experienced for both user and receiver. There is also packed in there a whopping 3000 mAh battery, which does really well to keep that display going. I could last a day with a bit over for bed, and on continuous HD video playback it would last 10.5 hours. One of the things I loved most about the G2 is that LG managed to make a 5.2 inch True HD IPS Plus LCD panel with 1080p resolution fit and works so well. That amount of screen size with excellent responsiveness and one of the most accurate color reproductions I've ever seen is amazing. Viewing angles aren't quite as good as what I found with the S4, but are still superior to the new Xperia Z1. To combat the lack of physical buttons available to press when you want to quickly check the time or see pending notifications, LG created Knock On. When the G2 is locked, tap twice on the screen and it turns on. Tap twice again, turns off. This only works if the presses are within a certain time of each other, a certain amount of force, and within the same space on screen. It also can only work from the home pages to lock it, so you always need to back out of apps. There are a lot of limitations, and I often found it wouldn't work at all at times and then perfectly at others. It's a winning feature, just frustratingly hit and miss. Just about every reviewer takes a jab at LG for their take on the Android OS. LG again delivers a heavy UI and many customizations and alterations, and it just isn't of great benefit. It isn't even up to the latest Android either, you're only getting Android 4.2.2. They had hands in just about every stock application, added in additional ways to really personalize the device to taste, but in most instances I just removed them. I hated the quick launch embedded icon thing that happens with the lock screen. You get many selections for animation effects, which is cool, and editing the home pages is really actually quite easy. The notification tab is a mess. You have an editable sliding row of toggles, same as what Samsung does. A brightness slider, a volume slider with its own settings cog that is larger than the actual settings button itself. Thank God LG were kind enough to include a means of removing the Q-Slide application launcher from the notifications menu, otherwise you would have no space at all. And then there's the Q-Slide apps themselves. I can't find a single good use for them. Transparent windows running atop one another is not as usable as you may hope. The worst thing for me, and it was the first thing I changed straight away, the LG inspired keyboard. Super busy, doesn't maximize key size for the display, and no benefit over the stock keyboard besides trying to type a message Note 3 style, but with your fingertip. An odd inclusion, Life Square. It keeps track of all of your device usage in terms of when and what you did on social media, taking photos, messages, and phone calls, you name it. It's a this is your life timeline. Perfect for a stalker or jealous partner, I guess, but otherwise completely redundant. Except for if you're in the next Hangover movie. Maybe LG would be the major sponsor for that one. I had to kind of laugh. This is actually a slightly toned back version of what LG has presented prior. You can still change up the theme, but you've only got two options this time, and they both suck. The icon selections have not improved at all and look terrible. The same goes for how they made the appearance of their applications. But I can't be too critical because they gave you the option of amending all of that. You can actually go and find icons you like and change them. You can amend the background of the messaging app to become whatever you want and not the cartoony junk they pre-install. The G2 could end up looking completely stock or completely out there depending on how much effort you're willing to put in. Or you can root it or just place a launcher on it. It's Android after all. I even love that LG gives you the option of what on-screen navigation buttons you want and how they're to be positioned. But when you lose screen size to on-screen buttons and the G2 actually makes use of the Google Now launching gesture from the bottom bezel and includes a launcher for the quick memo, I wonder whether they're better to take a bigger step, remove the app dock altogether, and use the gesture approach. I would have certainly been on board. But my favorite inclusion of all the many inclusions, the whole UI can be operated in portrait or landscape. Bravo! Audio playback is helped along with Dolby Mobile sound enhancement, but the loudspeakers, I must say, just aren't the best around. Not bad though, reasonable loudness but not heavy on bass. Its 13 megapixel camera was one of the G2's winning features. I consistently got excellent shots just in auto. Occasionally when I wanted to amend it, the camera UI was so simple and easy to use. The autofocus as well, very accurate and fast. And you get a host of modes, very Samsung look and feel, but everything you need. In video, I spent heaps of times shooting in 1080p at 60 frames per second because the videos were just outstanding. With the optical image stabilizer, I got silky smooth videos and crisp focus on the target. Somewhat gimmicky video modes where you can highlight a section of the video and it amplifies the sound coming from that region of the video would occasionally be useful but not very. The front-facing 2.1 megapixel camera as well does a decent job. If this was to come through with the Nexus 5, it would be a must-have device. The LG G2 is a brilliant phone for many reasons. The hardware used is without a doubt leading the pack. Yes, it screams rip-off when you consider shape and materials, but the usability is understated. I want that display and I want it usable in any orientation and in a single hand without compromise, and I got just that. If I can offer one piece of advice, buy this phone with the intention of using the customization options LG provides in the UI to make it look nothing like an LG skin. Then you've got yourself the perfect device. Help support the work I do by following the link below to pick one up from mobicity.com. I'm Kurt and this is KABOOtech. Thanks for watching.